what Lee Kuan Yew saw coming about China and why it matters. Now, you've probably heard the quote, Napoleon once warned, "Let China sleep, for when she wakes, she will shake the world." Well, spoiler alert, China didn't just wake up, it kicked the door wide open. And it's not just shaking the world anymore, it's shaping it, redrawing the global playbook. Right now, China's the second biggest economy on Earth, and if the forecasts hold, it could overtake the US by the 2030s. Sounds wild, right? Could it really happen? Maybe, maybe not. But one man saw it coming, way before it was even on most people's radar. His name? Lee Kuan Yew, the mastermind behind modern Singapore. While other world leaders were guessing, Lee had a front-row seat to China's rise. He sat with every generation of Chinese leadership, observing, learning, and understanding a vision that was still forming. And that's where this story begins. Because in this video, we're diving deep into Lee Kuan Yew's most jaw-dropping predictions about China. Insights that hit even harder today. If you're into videos that make you think, make you say, "Wait, what?" then go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see the future. Let's rewind for a second. Imagine watching a revolution take flight and then crash. That's the reality Deng Xiaoping lived through. He wasn't just a leader, he was a revolutionary who realized something crucial. The old way? It wasn't working. So what did he do? He broke the mold. He admitted failure. Then he pivoted. Deng chose to stop pretending they could do it all solo. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, China started buying Boeing 707s and Tridents. They knew they'd build their own one day. But first, they had to learn, adapt, take notes from those doing it better. It wasn't about pride, it was about progress. And that's exactly what Singapore did too. Smart decisions, open minds, real results. Now, let's go back to 1980. That bold speech we just mentioned? Yeah, that was then. Just a few years into China's grand experiment, economic reform. Just after they turned a sleepy little place called Shenzhen into a special economic zone. Lee Kuan Yew saw it. He could already see the gears turning. The future wasn't a question. It was a countdown. Fast forward 4 decades. Shenzhen? It's not just a city. It's a symbol. A living, breathing monument to China's transformation. What used to be a quiet fishing village is now a global hub of innovation, finance, and manufacturing. But rewind again. Before 1978, Shenzhen had barely over 300,000 people. So what changed? Deng Xiaoping made a visit to Singapore. He saw how capitalism could supercharge an economy. And he made a choice. A risky one. He'd test the waters, turn Shenzhen into a magnet for foreign investment. The result? Explosive growth. In just 20 years, Shenzhen's GDP didn't just rise, it skyrocketed. Skyscrapers went up, infrastructure transformed overnight, and the experiment became a model. Not just for China, but for the world. But here's the twist. This was only the beginning. Picture this. An economic beast rising right next door. Today, the Greater Bay Area, yes, including Shenzhen, is now matching South Korea in GDP. That's no small feat. It didn't happen overnight. And it didn't go unnoticed. Because Lee Kuan Yew? He saw it all unfolding. He didn't just foresee a Shenzhen's explosion. He predicted something even bigger. He believed that in just 2 or 3 generations, China wouldn't just buy planes, it would build them. And guess what? That future is unfolding right now. Somewhere in a Shanghai hangar, that vision is being pieced together. Introducing the C919, China's very own answer to Boeing and Airbus. Built by Comac, this jet isn't just a plane. It's a statement. It's a signal that China's ready to soar, literally and economically. Xi Jinping's dream is to move China from a factory of toys and sneakers to a technological superpower on par with Japan and Germany. And he believes aerospace is the next big leap. But here's the thing, building planes, it's not like building phones. It's tough, expensive, high stakes. Only a few countries have pulled it off. And yet, China's doing it. Just like Lee Kuan Yew said they would. But here's the million-dollar question. What does China's rise really mean for Southeast Asia? Well, some folks argue that China's internal challenges, its divisions, tensions, and growing pains will keep it too tangled up to pose a serious threat. But others? They're not so sure. And if history teaches us anything about China, it's this. When China stumbles, it doesn't stay down for long. So someone once asked me, where do you think China is headed? Now, let me be clear. I can't speak as a Chinese national. I'm Singaporean. Sure, I'm ethnically Chinese, but that difference matters. Claiming to speak on behalf of China. That wouldn't sit well in Beijing, and it definitely wouldn't go over well in Taipei. But speaking as a Singaporean with a deep understanding of Chinese culture and history, here's what I do believe. If you're betting on China falling apart, splintering into warlord states, or crumbling into regional factions, you're playing a very risky game. Because the truth is, China has a long tradition of bouncing back. Yes, it faces setbacks. Yes, it faces resistance. But time and again, it has shown the world how it pulls itself together, and when it does, the global balance shifts. I travel a lot, and people often assume I'm from China. Back in the day, they'd call me Chinaman, a term from a different era. In the 1940s, the face people knew was Chiang Kai-shek. Later, it was Mao Zedong. But behind every face was the same unstoppable drive, a vision for a modern, unified, and powerful China. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. A successful, stable China doesn't just benefit its own people. It brings balance to the region. It makes the world a little less volatile. Now, do I believe China's just going to start steamrolling through Southeast Asia with tanks and troops? It's not that black and white. The future rarely is. But here's what we do know. China's rise isn't coming. It's already here. And you can feel it in every deal, every innovation, every policy shift. After stepping down as Singapore's Prime Minister in 1990, Lee Kuan Yew became the person world leaders turned to when they needed clarity on China. Former US Vice President Al Gore once said, "If you want to understand China, ask Lee Kuan Yew." And here's why. Lee had something few others did: decades of direct, personal access to China's leadership. He wasn't guessing from the sidelines. He had a front-row seat to the greatest economic transformation of the modern era. In 2013, he released a book called One Man's View of the World, where he laid out his thoughts on global affairs. But when it came to China, his insights were razor-sharp. Lee understood something many Western analysts still struggle with. China is not just another country. It's a civilization, a 5,000-year-old one. In Chinese culture, chaos happens when the center weakens. That's why there's such a deep-rooted need for a strong, centralized government. It's not just politics, it's identity, history, philosophy. Some Western thinkers hope China will someday embrace democracy in the Western mold, but Lee didn't think that would happen. Because for China, that's just not how the world works. You've got 1.3 billion people, a history that stretches back to the days before Rome, and a cultural blueprint unlike anything in the West. So why would they copy someone else's model? Before we wrap up, let's zoom out and look at the big picture Lee Kuan Yew saw coming. He believed the biggest shift in global power wasn't just about new tech or emerging economies. It was about China returning to the global center stage. And yes, India too. Because if you go back 300 years, before colonization flipped the map, China and India weren't just influential, They were the world's biggest economic powerhouses. And now, they're coming back. So where is China really heading? And what does it mean for Southeast Asia and the world? Let's zoom out first. China is not just rising, it's rebounding. For much of recorded history, China was the global superpower. Along with India, it made up over half the world's GDP before the West's industrial rise. So, this current ascent, it's not new. It's a return. And when someone like Lee Kuan Yew, a man known for clarity over sentiment, says China will keep growing for the next 20 to 30 years, we should take it seriously. Because he wasn't just talking about cities like Shanghai or Shenzhen. He meant the vast interior, the second wave, the millions of workers still waiting to enter the global economy. Yes, China will eventually hit economic ceilings. Rising labor costs, an aging population, and slowing productivity are all real challenges. But even with those headwinds, China could still surpass the US in total GDP within our lifetime. Per capita, that's a much longer journey, maybe a century. But total power projection, that's coming much sooner. Now, here's where Southeast Asia enters the conversation. A rising China brings both opportunity and risk. On one hand, trade infrastructure projects like the Belt and Road and massive investments can supercharge Southeast Asian economies. On the other hand, China's influence could become overbearing. Just ask the Philippines or Vietnam about maritime tensions, or look at how Cambodia is becoming increasingly reliant on Chinese capital. And yet, to assume China will splinter or collapse under its own weight is to misunderstand both its history and culture. Chinese society is deeply conditioned to value unity, order, and centralized strength. Even when it fractures, it doesn't stay broken for long. Warlord eras, civil wars, cultural revolutions. Somehow it always finds a way back. So if you're in Southeast Asia, you don't bet on China's collapse. You plan for its rise. As for the United States, it still leads in innovation, technology, and military power. But the real challenge isn't military, it's strategic. Can America integrate China into the global system without trying to contain it? Can it encourage China to play by the rules while still acknowledging its need for recognition and influence? That's where diplomacy becomes crucial. You don't isolate a rising power. You seat it at the table and hold it accountable. Because China is learning. Unlike its ancient dynasties, this modern China knows it can't ignore the world. It needs energy from Africa, trade with Europe, rare earths from Latin America, and chips from Taiwan. Its empire, for the first time, is global. So the question isn't just, will China rise? It already is. The question is, how will the world adjust? They have to play in a much bigger game now. For the first time, China can't just focus on its own backyard. They have to think about the rest of the world. Why? Because without access to vital resources, things like oil, iron ore, and nickel, their growth could hit a serious wall. The question is, can they create enough domestic demand to keep the economy moving as their exports slowly decline? It's a tough position to be in. Right now, China is keeping its economy running by pouring huge amounts of money into infrastructure projects, especially in the western regions. Think of high-speed roads, railways, modern airports, and even nationwide telephone lines. They're even working on a massive project to bring water from the south to the dry, arid north. These are enormous, ambitious projects. And they're exactly what's keeping the Chinese economy ticking along.